Hello students and welcome to the e-learning program initiated by Sri Gyan Manjari Vidyapeeth for the students of Standard 10, in which we are learning the subject of social science. Students, from the previous lecture we had started with chapter number 5, that is the fifth chapter in the history section of the book. Name of the chapter is India's Heritage of Science and Technology. We are very proud to have a very rich heritage which is passed on to us by the great people who researched a lot in the field of science and technology, and the knowledge that they gathered has been passed on from generation to generation, which is not only useful to us but it has spread around the world. And today we feel very proud when the world tells us that theorems made by this great scientist or the findings done by this great personality in the field of, say, maths, science, astrology, astronomy, medicinal science, or chemistry, or surgery, then we feel very proud to have such a great line of heritage which deals with science and technology. So let's take a quick recap of what we learned in the previous lecture. Science and technology has made world a small place. That is true. In today's world, with the help of speedier communication, speedier travel, with the help of science and technology, we have been able to make uh, transport so much fast that we can reach from any place in the world to any place in the world within a very short time. Same way, communication has come down to fractions of a second, where we can communicate to any place in the world within a fraction of a second, and we can establish a communication link, and not only audio but nowadays video also. We can call each other on the communication line, either audio or video. So in this way, uh, science and technology has helped the world become a small place. Nowadays we can call world as a small village where everybody is within reach. India has scientific attitude along with religious outlook. Right from the ancient times we have learned that people had been worshipping the nature, then the gods and goddesses, and we have so many gods and goddesses, we have so many temples, we have so many shrines belonging to different religion. So it is believed that Indians, they have a religious outlook, but along with the religious outlook we have a scientific attitude because of the studies, the researches that were done by these people. They bring forth a very good result in the field of science, and they tell us that apart from having a religious outlook, we also have a scientific attitude. Because if we see the temples, the mosque, whatever construction work is done, that is all based on mathematics. That all needs the expertise of knowing the field of architecture and knowing the designs, because lots of mathematics, lots of science is also used in making of these uh, sites. So we cannot ignore the fact that without the knowledge of science and technology we cannot have a religious outlook. So along with the religious outlook we also had the attitude for scientific approach. Then particularly we learned different faculties like metallurgy, where very since ancient times we see that lots of researches were done on different minerals, different metals, knowing their properties, how to mix different minerals in order to get alloys. And we find lots of examples to prove that since ancient ages we have been an expert in the field of metallurgy. We have had fine products in the shape of lots of statues found all over India. Many of them, most of them are metal statues that are found, which relates to the field of metallurgy. Then we learnt about chemistry, right? Chemistry, working with chemicals. Chemistry is called experimental science, where we have to experiment with different materials, minerals available and see their properties, etc. Maybe it's in liquid state or gaseous state or in uh, any other state. Science of medicine and surgery comes the next one, where we have learned that since ages people of India have been experts in uh, using Ayurveda as a form of treatment. Ayurveda is nothing but the knowledge of using different parts of plant kingdom, animal kingdom, and using that for curing different diseases. We knew that there are lots of books written where it is mentioned that based on the symptoms it can be which type of disease and what medicines should be used to cure those diseases. During the medication time, which type of diet to be used, after post recovery, which type of diet to be used. So till the disease is not out of the body and the full body has fully recovered from that disease, the complete description is given in these books. Even the use of ash of different metals, minerals have been mentioned. Apart from using Ayurveda, it's also recommended that use of chemicals in making medicines, allopathy, should also be used along with the Ayurveda medicine for quicker and faster results. In the field of surgery in medical science, there have been lots and lots of tools and equipments that were used for surgery, and they were so sharp that they can split a hair into two parts. And lots of details and descriptions are given where how to make a surgery, which type of tools to be used. Students were taught on either dead bodies or they were wax statues that were used for explaining the theory of surgery to the students. So we see lots of advancement done in the field of medicine and surgery even in the ancient ages. Now we go ahead with a chapter. Ancient veterinary science of India. Veterinary science is the science which relates to the diagnosis, the symptoms, diagnosis and the cure the diseases in animals. So veterinary science or science of treating animals was also developed in ancient India. In ancient India we see that for example horse was the main mode of transport, either single horse ride or horses carriages driven by horses. They were also used. Caravans were used where ox or bullocks were used for harnessing and to carry goods from one place to another. So lots of animals, for example camels, etc., lots of animals were used as modes of transport. Plus there were lots of animals which were used in war. For example horses, elephants, they were used in war. There were lots of domesticated animals kept, for example milking animals or sheep and goat kept for hair and fur and all that, so to get wool, etc. So there were lots and lots of animals that ancient people were dealing in, and of course they had lots of diseases. So the science which treats animals is called veterinary science, and we have proof even in ancient times people researched and found lots of observation, found lots of cure, lots of medicines which deals with treatment of animals. Ancient India had books written on diseases related to horses, that is Ashwa, and elephants, that is Hasti or Hathi. Among them, Hasti Ayurveda is very well known because in ancient times, elephants were not only used during war, but they were also used during festivals for with the temples, etc. Elephants were made tame and they used to work in the forest to bring out the timber, etc. So we have a whole separate book which is written for the elephants, that is Hasti Ayurveda. Then another, Shalihotra and Ashwashastra are well known. Ashwashastra, that is all of the science and everything that deals with horses. We have a whole book on that also, that is Ashwashastra. So that is also quite well known, which proves that Indians had quite an in-depth knowledge about the treatment of animals. Progress made by ancient India in the field of mathematics. Now students, we have to keep in mind that from this 5th chapter, according to the weightage of the marks that is given by the board, Fifth chapter only from the section of history carries a full 4 marks question at the end of the paper. That last section has a 4 mark question. Out of that, one question will be asked from chapter number 5. So here we have to deal with very lengthy essay type answers that have approximately 4 marks, right? So there should be at least 15 to 16 points where you can write, and you have to memorize it and you have to answer it so that we get full marks. So please pay attention. And these type of, for example, medicine and surgery, that is complete 4 mark question. Metallurgy and chemistry can be clubbed together to make a 4 mark question, because individually they are 2 marks question, but they can be clubbed together and asked as a 4 mark question. Next, medicine and surgery, that can alone come for 4 marks. Same way, mathematics is a complete 4 mark question in itself, one single whole question. India has made a notable contribution in the field of mathematics. This is the starting line, and we should usually start by praising the faculty or the subject that we are talking upon. So India has made quite a notable, yes, praiseworthy contribution in the field of mathematics. Now we have to remember individually, because there are lots and lots of mathematicians who are mentioned over here. Their books are there. The formulas, theorems, or the findings and researches, the observation that they have made, they have discovered something and that has been in use because they first started it. So all of this is having quite a lot of importance, and we have to remember them as it is. So India's some of the finest gifts to the world are the discovery of zero. Zero was discovered as a digit by India. Elsewhere we're using from digits 1 to 9, but India discovered zero, and that is why we can have as much long n number of digits in, say, any number, whatever length, we can make it longer if we have 0. For example, you place 0 before 1, then it is having no value. But if you place 1 after 0, then the value increases from 1 to 10th. Same way, you add again 1 0 after 10, the value becomes 10 times. So in this way, India has made one of the finest gifts to the world, that is the discovery of zero. Next is the decimal system. Decimal system, putting a point after a number, that is fraction converted into decimal point. So decimal system was discovered by India, and then it spread around the world. Same way, lots of discoveries were made in the field of algebra. Theorems of Bodhayan is quite famous. Geometry also, lots of discoveries were done in geometry. Lots of new theories were propagated in the field of geometry and arithmetic. Now we come one by one. Aryabhatta was the discoverer of zero, whereas the knowledge of writing zero after figures was discovered by the sage named Grudsamad. Grudsamad is the person who had started writing zero after numbers. As we just discussed, you place 0 after 1, automatically the value goes 10 times higher. You pay one more 0 after 10, automatically the value goes 10 times higher. So the person who started writing zeros after number is Grudsamad, but Aryabhatta was the person who discovered zero. The ancient Indian mathematician gave the names of numbers formed by placing up to 53 zeros after 1. Please understand this. इसको हम एक या 1 बोलते हैं, right? But when we place a 0 after 1, उसका नाम हम देते हैं 10. So that is what the point wants to say, that the ancient Indian mathematician gave the names. So this is the name given to this number 10. Same way, when we say 100, either in English or Hindi, whatever. So we say saw, right? So saw is the name. Same way we place 3 zeros after 1, the name given to that number is Hazar. So we write it in that way. So we have up till 53 zeros. Up till 53 zeros we gave the name. So that is what the point wants to say, that Indian mathematician give the names to the numbers formed by placing up to 53 zeros after 1. Yes, understood now? 1, but when you place 1, the number changes but the name also changes, right? So thus 100, हजार, उसके बाद 10,000, उसके बाद लाख, 10 लाख, फिर करोड़, फिर 10 करोड़, ऐसे नाम जो दिए गए हैं, जितने जीरोस आप लगाते हो हर बार नाम चेंज हो जाता है. सो आफ्टर 1 यू प्लेस 53 जीरोस, तब तक के नाम हमारे मैथमेटिशियंस ने बनाए थे. Archaeologists found that the measuring and weighing of instruments, now we got to prove, right? So how did that happen in ancient India? Yes, of course, for example, grain is sold. Then grain is sold, of course, in a bag. तो बैग का एक साइज होना चाहिए, तो उस साइज में करेक्ट वेट होना चाहिए. ये प्लस माइनस 400-500 ग्राम, दैट्स ओके, बट देन वी शुड हैव अ वेट, right? So archaeologists found that the measuring and weighing instruments of Harappa and Mohenjo-daro used decimal systems. It's a very, very important thing. Archaeologists, when they were excavating or digging the sites, they found some of the measuring stones which measured equal. So most of the shopkeepers, they were using the same stones and measuring for measuring, so say 1 meter, but then it can also go in decimal, 1.5 meter, 1.10 meter. So they were expert and they had measuring things, scales for weighing and measuring both. Metatithi, the great mathematician, gave the concept of this decimal system. Who gave the concept of decimal system? That is, Metatithi gave the concept or the idea of decimal system. That, what is decimal system? Nothing. If it is 1 apple, then we write it as 1. If there are 2 apples, then we write it as 2. But what happens if this is 1 complete? Okay, but this is only half, then we write it as 1/2. This is fraction, but when we write in decimal, it becomes 1.5 apple. So the concept of having decimal was propagated by Metatithi. Bhaskaracharya wrote books, very important ones, Lilavati Ganit and Bij Ganit in 1150 AD, right? Bhaskaracharya was the great mathematician who wrote Lilavati Ganit and Bij Ganit in 1150 AD. He discovered the science of addition, that is plus, and subtraction, that is minus. He discovered this science that whenever you put this sign, it means we are adding 2 numbers, and whenever we are using the sign of minus, it means we are subtracting a smaller number from a greater number or a bigger number. So these signs were discovered by him. So we see that Indians were not less. Whatever we are using today, most of them were found by the Indians. Brahmagupta gave the knowledge about the type of equations in mathematics. Yes, the most troublesome part of mathematics is remembering the equations and putting them into use, into practice, in practical. So Brahmagupta was the person who gave the knowledge of different types of equations in mathematics. Bodhayana gave another version of Pythagoras theorem. Lands apart, right? Pythagoras found by someone, but in India another version of that same formula was being used by Bodhayana. So Bodhayana gave another version of Pythagoras theorem. Around 800 BC, 800 BC means before Christ. BC stands for before Christ. Christ year, the year Christ was born, is taken as 0. Today it is 2020. That means 2020 years after Christ was born. So we go back when we have in the minus part, that is before Christ. that is 800 years before Christ, Abstamba, that is the name of the mathematician, wrote a book called Shulva Sutra. In this book, he gave the method of accurately calculating dimensions for constructing altars that are needed for sacrifices. The altars that are needed for sacrifices, he gave accurate dimensions how to make them. That is written by Abstamba in his book Shulva Sutra. These sacrificial pits were also called Yajnavedis and were used for Vedic yajnas. When yajnas were done, yes, yajna or yajna, we say same thing. So when yajnas were done, sacrificial pits were required and accurate measurements were required to make those pits. His book also contains analysis of several principles of mathematics. Now we come to Aryabhatta. Aryabhatta is known as the father of mathematics. Who is called father of mathematics? He is Aryabhatta, because he was a genius of a person, not only in mathematics, he was also genius in astrology, astronomy. Aryabhatta wrote a book called Aryabhattiyam. Very, very important. The book written by Aryabhatta is Aryabhattiyam. In this book, he gave an approximate value of pi. That is p or pi, whatever we say, right, as 3.14. He is the one who propagated that there is a value called pi, and value of that pi is 3.14 or 22 by 7. He also suggested that pi is the constant which works as multiplier in the equation of circumference and diameter of a circle. Whenever we are dealing with circles, their measurements, diameter and circumference, all that, in that equation comes a pi. So he said that pi is a constant, that is constant, would change nahi hota. Right? So pi has a standard value, either you use 3.14 or you use 22 by 7. That is the constant which works in multiplying whenever we are working with circles, the dimensions, diameter, circumference, etc. Very important point to remember. This should be mentioned in your answer. He also gave information about Ashtanga method of multiplication, addition, subtraction, square root, cube root, etc. So lots and lots of discoveries come from Aryabhatta. He gave the Ashtanga method of multiplication, how to multiply, then addition also, subtraction also, square root. Yes, it was known by him that many years back in history when other civilizations were still struggling with mathematics. He already gave square roots and cube roots. Aryabhatta also wrote books, two other books, Das Gitika and Aryabhattyam. These are the two important books written by Aryabhatta. One is, we already studied, Aryabhattiyam, and another one is Das Gitika. In his book Arya Siddhanta, he had described the main principles of astronomy. This book is related with astronomy, but of course astronomy also has lots of calculations to be done. So the third book written by Aryabhatta, first one is Aryabhattiyam, second one is Das Gitika, and the third one is Arya Siddhanta. Yes, Siddhant, principles. So he had described the main principles of astronomy. We'll be learning astronomy in this particular chapter. He also found the solution of various fundamentals of arithmetic and geometry. These are very important points and should be mentioned in your answers. Apart from this, there are many scholars who contributed various aspects of mathematics in their works, books, findings, observation. Two of these scholars, namely Katyayana and Bhaskaracharya, they are quite notable. Contribution special, now this question has changed, is what is the contribution of Aryabhatta in the field of mathematics, astrology, astronomy, all of them. Aryabhatta made a remarkable contribution in the field of astronomy. Now we are talking about Aryabhatta as a person who deals with physics and space, distance, so astronomy. As a result, when India launched its first satellite, it is known as Aryabhatta. India launched its first satellite. Name of that satellite was Aryabhatta because he was the person who gave quite a lot of important findings in his discoveries and in the principles that he set out for astronomy. He declared that Earth rotates on its own axis. One of the great personality of the West got killed when he stated his discovery that Earth is not the center of the solar system. Sun is the center of solar system, and rest of the planets, they revolve around the sun. People had such a wrong belief in the mind that they killed him because of this principle, or because of the discovery that he had made. So here we can see that he declared, Aryabhatta, in his book on astronomy, he declares that Earth, it spun around its own axis. That is how we have day and night. He proved that the basic reason for lunar eclipse is the shadow of Earth. He also proved that चंद्रग्रहण या lunar eclipse जो होता है वो तब होता है जब sun और moon के बीच में earth आता है. Yes, earth comes in between the sun and the moon. That is how the earth obstructs the light falling on the moon, and that is how we have lunar eclipse. He was the first person to propagate this theory. The Indian scholar used to call this shadow as Ajarbar, the shadow which is caused because earth comes in between the light, that is the sun passes from the sun to the moon. That light is obstructed by the earth, and that much part of the earth shadow falls on moon. That is called as Ajarbar. That was propagated by Aryabhatta. Now let us see some of the names of books based on science and the authors who have written those books. Prajanan Shastra. Prajanan Shastra for reproduction, right? Reproduction of species. Prajanan Shastra, the Shastra or the book that deals with reproduction. That was written by Brahmabharya Panchal. Next is Chikitsa Sangraha. Chikitsa, to give remedy, cure, that is called Chikitsa. That is to give treatment. So Sangraha, that is collection of works that deal with symptoms, diseases, remedies, cures, medicine, etc. That is written by Chakrapani Datta. Kama Sutra, that is written by Vatsayan. Vrikshat Ayurveda, whole of the book dedicated to the trees and the plants, that is the plant kingdom, by Maharshi Parashar. Very important findings are in this book. Yoga Shastra, written by Maharshi Patanjali, that is the complete book on yoga. Yantra Sarvasva, written by Maharshi Bharadwaj, that also deals with the science of yantra. Kala Ganana, written by a very famous Indian ancient scientist, that is Shakmuni. So these are the different names of the books and the authors who have contributed in the field of science by writing these books, finding or noting down their observations, findings, researches, etc. Now we come to astronomy and astrology. Club together astronomy and astrology, both of them club together. If the question is asked, write a short note on astronomy and astrology of ancient India, then it is 4 marks. Individually 3 marks, 2 marks. Astronomy is the most ancient science. Why is astronomy the most ancient science? Because even when the primitive men were living, they used to find out direction with the help of stars. By identifying few stars and by following few stars, they used to reach that destination. So when human beings got evolved, they started looking up at the sky for directions during night time. So they had been watching sky, so automatically lots of people, they were watching the sky, they made lots of observations, and they noted it. So astronomy is one of the most ancient science. Many works, that is these works or these books, they are called Granth or Grantha, related to astronomy have been written in India. Ancient universities of India. Please remember chapter number 4, Literary Heritage of India, where we learned the ancient universities of Nalanda, Varanasi, Vallabhi, etc. In all these 4 universities, there were teachers who taught the students on the subjects of astrology and astronomy. Now, first thing is we come to astronomy. What is astronomy? Everything in space, they are celestial objects. If we are living in this world, on this earth, then outside the world, whatever objects are found in the space, they are all celestial objects. So, movement of celestial objects, it is because the earth is spinning, the earth is also rotating around the sun, the whole of the galaxy, whole of the solar system is spinning around itself. We have proof of all that in the science. So the position of planets and different stars, they keep on changing. So astronomy is a science which relates to the position of these celestial objects, movements of these celestial objects. That is called astronomy. Astrology is the science which predicts future depending upon the location, position and movement of these celestial objects. So please understand what is astronomy and what is astrology. So lots of Indian universities of India did systematic and deep study of astronomy. Indian scholars studied planets and their movements. Yes, with the help of that glass, they, in those days, the telescopic lens, the telescope itself, yes, developed by Galileo, etc., to see faraway objects. Indian scholars, they studied planets and their movements, constellation, the shape, the figure found by a group of stars, that's called constellation, and other celestial objects in several mathematical calculation. You know, even previously in the previous chapter, in the previous lecture, sorry, we had discussed about this, that Indian scientists or scholars, they were able to predict the arrival or appearance of certain comets that used to regularly orbit the sun. So all this is based on calculation, mathematical calculation. So studying planets, their movements, constellation and celestial objects in several of their mathematical calculation. Based on these calculations, they made remarkable progress in the fields of astrology and astronomy. For example, a very great king, when he was born, at that time what was the position of different celestial objects. So we can understand that if another child is born during that same position of the stars, then he can also become quite a successful person, right? So in this way, lots of progress was done in the field of astronomy and astrology. They also used to make several predictions by studying the movements of the planets. By studying the movements of the planets, they were able to predict lots of happenings that are going to happen in the future. Aryabhatta made a remarkable contribution in the field of astronomy. As a result, when India launched its first satellite, it was named after Aryabhatta. He declared that the Earth rotates on its own axis. All this is also about, because this is outside Earth. So when we are talking about astronomy and astrology, we have to mention the discoveries made by Aryabhatta. He proved the basic reason for lunar eclipse, that is the sun, between the sun and the moon, Earth comes in between, and that is how the light is prevented to fall on the moon, and that much part where the Earth's shadow falls on the moon, then that is lunar eclipse. That part, the shadow, is called Ajarbar. Brahmagupta popularized the law of gravitation in his book Brahma Siddhanta. In the book Brahma Siddhanta, written by Brahmagupta, important notes were made about gravity. Right? We have to please remember this, laws of gravitation. This happened even before Newton. Right? But lots of findings were done by ancient scholars, Indian scholar like Brahmagupta. Right? Laws of gravitation. Contribution of India in the field of astrology. Part of astrology and astronomy, both the answers go together. Ancient universities of India that we know did systematic study and deep study of astrology. Astrology, we have already learned the definition, or what is astrology. What is astrology? Predicting future with the help of studying the movements of the celestial objects. That's called astrology. Yes, जो ज्योतिषी हाथ देखते हैं वो बोलता है तुम्हारी कुंडली लाओ. Yes, तो कुंडली में क्या होता है? The position of different planets during the time of your birth or right now. And Indian scholars studied planets and their movements, constellation and other celestial objects in several mathematical calculations. Based on this calculation, many predictions are made in the field of astrology. They also used to make several predictions by studying the movements of the planets. One of the greatest astrologer and astronomer, please remember this name, Varamihe. Varamihe divided astrology into three sectors. The first one is called Tantra, second one is called Hora, and the third one is called Samhita. Please, I am repeating the point again. One of the greatest astrologer and astronomer of ancient India was Varamihe. He divided astrology into three sectors, namely Tantra, Hora and Samhita. He wrote a book called Brihad Samhita. This book gives information about effects of planets on man's future, that is astrology, right? His characteristics, his behavior, various classes of animals, lots of things he has mentioned in this book called Brihad Samhita. Digging points, the right time, auspicious, that is the good time for marriage, because हम ज्योतिषी को दिखाते हैं शुभ मुहूर्त क्या है, तो मुहूर्त क्या होता है? When are the positions of the stars correct, stars and the planets correct, so that it becomes a auspicious or a good moment for any auspicious thing like marriage or digging pond, so that water energy, wells, right, and making gardens is correct size. Auspicious time for sowing seeds, very very important for farmers. So with that we find all that in Brihad Samhita. Next we come to Vastu Shastra. What is Vastu Shastra? Vastu Shastra means the science of architecture. Yes, किचन कौन से डायरेक्शन में होना चाहिए, फ्रंट दरवाज़ा कौन से डायरेक्शन में होना चाहिए, बेडरूम कहाँ होना चाहिए, पूजा का स्थल कहाँ होना चाहिए. So all that is dependent on Vastu Shastra. So Vastu Shastra means the science of architecture. It is an inseparable part of Vastu Shastra. Architecture cannot happen without Vastu Shastra. India's knowledge and contribution in Vastu Shastra is recognized and highly praised now by many countries, many people, and people of the world now follow Vastu Shastra as a very important science that goes along with architecture. Please remember this: Brahma, Narad, Brihaspati, Bhrigu, Vashishta and Vishwakarma have made unique contribution in the field of Vastu Shastra. These are all Indian scholars. I do agree with you that most of these names are also the names of gods, right? But these are people, the Indian scholars, who gave lots and lots of contribution in the field of Vastu Shastra. They are Brahma, Narad, Brihaspati, Bhrigu, Vashishta and Vishwakarma. On the basis of principles of Vastu Shastra, they gave guidelines for constructing houses. How an ideal house can be made, which should be the correct direction where your front gate falls, right? So, principles of Vastu Shastra, they gave guidelines for constructing houses, temples. They gave these guidelines to the kings also for making temples, palaces, horse stable also, because horses were considered an important mode of transport. So, horse stables, forts, storehouses for storing grain. Yes, if it is based on Vastu Shastra, the grain storage will never have an empty storage if it is made according to Vastu Shastra, right? It will always be filled with grain so that you never have scarcity of grain. And also town planning, very, very important, right? That we have learned chapter number 2. Varamir has also discussed about Vastu Shastra in his book called Brihad Samhita that we learned later in 15th century, because somewhere this art of Vastu Shastra, this knowledge of Vastu Shastra got lost. So 15th century, that is 1400 to 1499 AD, Rana Kumbha of Mewar, a very brave soldier, warrior and a king, Rana Kumbha of Mewar, made several improvements in the previous versions of Vastu Shastra and revived this art of Vastu Shastra. According to a traditional belief, Vishwakarma is believed to be the first architect of God, right? According to belief. For example, if we take the artisans, that is carpenters. For carpenters, Vishwakarma is their God, right? Though we learned that Vishwakarma is an Indian scholar who was an expert in the field of Vastu Shastra, right? So Vishwakarma is considered as one of the first architects of God. He divided Vastu Shastra into 8 sections. We just have to remember that one. What he did in these sections is provide detailed information related to Vastu Shastra, such as selecting, location, different shapes. Yes, that should be structure, planning of things, planning of temples, Brahmasthan, that is where we keep our gods, planning dining room, in which direction should your storehouse where we store grain should fall, which is the correct place in the house to have food, right? So dining place, bedroom, etc. for resting. As time passes, we observe that according to the time there are lots of changes taking place in Vastu Shastra, because everybody doesn't get a house which falls in the correct direction, right? So some changes have to be made. So those changes are accepted in Vastu Shastra. Earlier, Vastu Shastra was explained with religious perspective in the East, but now it is looked at also scientific approach perspective around the world. Scientific heritage of ancient India. Now this is the last question, but it includes everything, right from metallurgy, chemistry, medicinal science, surgery, mathematics, astrology, astronomy, Vastu Shastra. You have to write everything if this particular question is asked, that is scientific heritage, or explain or write in detail about the scientific heritage of India. It's quite a long question, and we have to include everything that is in the chapter number 5. So India has an extremely rich heritage to start with in the field of science and technology. Lots of innumerable contribution has been made in the field of metallurgy, chemistry, mathematics, medicine, science, surgery, astrology, astronomy, Vastu Shastra. Everything we have to include in this answer. Give some examples also. Statue of Nataraja made during the Chola period, fine example of metallurgy, तो उसका एक दे दिया. फिर chemistry का, Acharya Nagarjuna has made us proud with his immense and rich work in chemistry. For example, the 2 books written by him, that is Rasa Ratnakara and Arogya Manjari, were 2 books describing chemical various chemicals found in chemistry and how to use them. Such was the his knowledge that the Nalanda University made him the head of the Nalanda University, and he had a special in this campus he had a special school for chemistry, furnace also. Several structures such as copper statue of Buddha, Sultanganj statue of Buddha at Nalanda, Vijayastambha, they are all the best examples of excellence in chemistry. So that deals with chemistry part. Now we come to medicine and science and medicinal science and surgery. So write the names of all the Indian scholars that were experts in the field of medicine and science and surgery. So Maharshi Charak, Maharshi Sushruta and Maharshi Vagbhadra. And the expertise in which sector? So medical and herbal science, and did in extensive research and reached great heights. Okay, then their books. Maharshi Charak wrote Charak Samhita, Sushrut, Maharshi Sushrut wrote Sushrut Samhita, and Maharshi Vagbhat he wrote Vagbhat Vagbhata Samhita, and today also referred by the doctors. Then what were they skilled? In surgery they could stop blood circulation by a ball-shaped bandage and skillfully operate on lots of diseases like abdomen, kidney, cataract, hernia. All this we have to mention. Then last line should be about the veterinary science also, lots of development in that also. Then we come to mathematics, because quite a long answer, right? So small things related, important things that you can remember for each and every faculty or topic or subject that we are talking about. In mathematics, all the discoveries can be written at one point: discovery of zero, discovery of decimal system, algebra, mathematics theorem by Bodhayana, chemistry, geometry and arithmetic. Then who discovered zero? He also gave the Aryabhatta, that means he gave the value of pi, that is 3.14 or 22 pi 7. Brahmagupta gave equations in mathematics. Bodhayana gave another version of Pythagoras theorem. Lots of astronomy works and astrology works were also there. Ancient universities, they did a lot of work in the field of astrology and astronomy. Aryabhatta also considered as a remarkable contribution in the field of astronomy. So India launched its first satellite and named it Aryabhatta. He declared that Earth, now whatever his declaration or his findings, for example, Earth rotates on its axis, and another Brahmagupta, mathematician Brahmagupta, he talked about the laws of gravitation in his book called Brahma Siddhanta. Greatest astrologer and astronomer Varamir divided astrology into three sections, namely Tantra, Hora and Samhita. And ancient India had also made tremendous progress in the field of Vastu Shastra. Then give the names of the people associated with it: Brahma, Narad, Brihaspati, Bhrigu, Vasishtha and Vishwakarma. They have contributed a lot. Today Western countries also follow Vastu Shastra in various aspects. So this is quite a long question and can be efficiently answered if we remember the main parts of most of the subtopics of the question. Now we come to one of the important question of the chapter, unity in diversity. It's a very common question, but we have to write over here as a separate answer. There is no place for rigidity or orthodoxy in India, because India's culture is varied. We accept cultures of outside, so we are not rigid, we are not orthodox, we do not stick to the old beliefs and traditions. Combinations of science and religion, practical knowledge, materialistic and physical, supernatural principles. India's culture also preaches balance in between all these things. We are religious minded, but then we have scientific outlook and scientific attitude also. Yes, we have practical knowledge also. We know all about the materialistic things, either physical or supernatural, right? So we have a balance between all these things. All religions are considered equal as per constitution, and even the ancient times also people lived peacefully. So in spite of various differences among communities of India, Indians respect each other's religion and lives and values. This shows that the unique feature of India's culture is unity in diversity. So with this we complete chapter number 5. Thank you, students.